Hi everyone, welcome to this live Q&A with me, Shakina. In this 60-minute session, I'm here to answer all of your OET questions. It doesn't matter if your question is a simple one or if it's a difficult one. For me to answer, post it in the chat and I will make my way through all of your questions and try and answer as many as possible. So if you're new, that was just the format of the session today. Um, like I said, if you're joining us on YouTube or on Facebook, type your question in and that question will come through to me. I'll answer as many as possible. Now, it doesn't matter where you are in your preparation journey. You could be, um, you know, you could be someone who's just started out studying and maybe you don't know much about OET, or you could be someone who is going to have your test, do your test really soon, and you're looking for an answer to a particular question that's bothering you. So there's no such thing as a silly question. We love to hear all of your questions. So feel free to post them in the chat. Now, and I can see that there have already been a few questions that have come in, so I'm going to start with them immediately. So we've got a question here from Sharon. Sharon's asking, how can we master listening, especially part A and C? So with listening, one of the resources that I can recommend is our listening week. I'm going to put the link to that in the chat very soon. But there is a session in the listening week series that talks about how you can improve your listening. Often, when you are practicing for OET, you might go through a lot of practice tests, especially if you're weak in or you feel you're weak in a particular section. You need to improve. You might go through part A or part C. You might go through a lot of practice tests and try and improve that way. Now, that is one way to improve your skills. The skills that approach can improve are your test taking skills. So, when you're doing part A, how do you, move your eyes over the notes? How do you anticipate information that might be in the blanks? How do you, how do you adjust to the accent? All of those are test taking skills that you would practice when you're doing a part A uh, over and over again, right? Similarly, for part C, maybe when you're doing that, you would be practicing multiple choice questions and how to answer those, or underlining words that are important in the question. So those are your test taking skills. That's one way to improve. If you want to really improve your language skills, so how good you are at listening and how good you are at uh, part A and part C. The other way to do it is through working on your listening, and that would be to listen to the kinds of things that you hear in part A and the kinds of things that you hear in part C. Now, part A is all about patient consultations. So it's a healthcare professional talking to a patient. And it could be from any of the 12 professions that OET tests for. And our advice would be to listen to real life patient consultations. There are a few resources that you can get on YouTube. And like I said, I'm going to post the listening week playlist that will have some more recommendations. So there, patient consultations for part A, and for part C, a really good way to do that is to listen to podcasts. You don't have to listen to the whole podcast. You can listen to short bits of it, and not just listening, but trying to, maybe when you hear the topic of the podcast, ask yourself some questions about what you'd like to know from listening, um, as you before you begin, and then try afterwards, after you listen, to kind of summarize the podcast or the bit that you've listened to, and try and put it in your own words. So sort of just not just listening, but trying to do something with that podcast. Maybe you could pair up with a friend and discuss what you heard. So those are all really good ways to practice and to improve your language skills for listening, part A and C. And as I promised, I'm just going to put in the listening week playlist for you, which has lots of suggestions. Of course, a lot of test taking tips as well, but also a lot of suggestions for to improve your listening skills overall. All right. I've got another question for from Sharon, again on YouTube, saying OET officials taking live classes for 4 modules. Um, how are the classes and the payment? So, Sharon, with um, classes, we recommend our accredited or our trusted teachers, and you will find all of those teachers on our website at our Study with a Teacher page, on our Study with a Teacher page. Now, how these classes are really differs. Our teachers know that you, as candidates, are busy healthcare professionals. You have time is very valuable. Some of you like studying online, some of you like studying face to face, and so you'll find on our Study with the Teacher page partners who offer all kinds, who can offer something that will suit you. It could be an online class, maybe a face-to-face class. Maybe you're interested in just writing corrections, or having your speaking assessed and some feedback for you to improve on your speaking. So all of those options are there. I'm going to post the link to the Study with a Teacher page on our website. That's on our website. And with regard to your second question about the payment, that really depends on the teacher that you study with and what you opt for. Now, remember that it is you know, preparing or spending money in preparation is an investment of your time, of course, but of your money, obviously. And it is a worthwhile investment because it really means that you're studying with someone who you can trust, who will give you the right information, who will guide your study, who will tell you what areas you need improvement in, where you're strong, where you're already good. These are trained and qualified teachers. And so it is an investment of your money, but it is definitely something that will help you to, it will help you in the long run. And that means that you could, it will give you your chances of passing the first time round will be higher and better. Okay, I have got a question here from Ahmad on YouTube saying, is it worth remarking the reading subtest? Ahmad, with regard to remarking, now really the decision is up to you. When you are considering the decision, there are 3 things that you need to keep in mind. That 3 things could happen that you need to keep in mind. One is that your score could stay the same. One is your score could improve, and one is that your score could go down. Now, all of these are possible scenarios. When it comes to reading and listening, you know that just part A of those tests is remarked. The other parts are marked by, parts B and C are not remarked. So keeping that in mind, often what we find is, that you really need to think about whether you have how you performed in that part of the test, and sort of just have a reflection, a self-reflection, and ask yourself before you make that decision. It might not really be what you are expecting because, like I said, only part A is remarked. And oftentimes what happens is that candidates often make mistakes that that that, for example, with spelling. Now, if you spell something incorrectly because you haven't copied the right spelling, there is no second chance, right? That is wrong the first time. And if you give your paper to remark, it is going to come back wrong. And so, because of that, with reading, we don't really see a lot of value or benefit or call it whatever in remarking your test, because it's only that one part that is remarked. Right. So I'm just going down to some more questions. Um, I've got a question here for from Gatanella on Facebook saying, "Can you share some tips for reading part B and C?" All right. So I'm just going to take that question off and put up some tips for reading part B, and I'll talk a little bit about part C as well. So with reading part B, you're going to be reading workplace communication. So emails, memos, policy guidelines, that sort of thing. Each extract is different. It's separate. The extracts are not connected to one another. So keep that in mind as you approach the questions. What this means is that if you find yourself you find that you haven't answered one question to your satisfaction, forget about that question and start with the new one. Approach it individually. It's There's no connection between the questions, so that's one thing that will actually be quite helpful to think about when you approach reading part B. The second tip that I have is to look for evidence to support your choice. Often, what happens is you might see some words or a phrase or a word in the answer option, and you try and match it to something that you've seen in the text. We call this like keyword matching, and this isn't really an effective way to read for part B or part C, because the way that the questions are designed and the answer options are designed is that you can answer those questions really only if you understand the meaning and you engage with the meaning of the text, and not just the keywords. So, one way to do that is actually to find out reasons why your answer option is right, or you think your answer option is right, and look for reasons from the text. Another thing that you can do is also look for reasons why the other options are wrong. And you can do this for part B and part C. So you're looking for evidence from the text for why an answer is right and why the other options are wrong. This might take a bit of time initially for you to do, but if you practice that way, you'll actually be able to get better at it, and you might even be able to do it just without thinking too much. It will just come to you. So practice is really important with this second tip. And then the third tip is to read the sentence which you think has the answer more than once. And that's because you really, again, want to reconfirm and make sure that you've got the meaning, you're not being distracted by words, and you've understood the meaning. So all the last two tips would be a useful part for part C as well. Okay. Chinu on Facebook saying in listening part A, is it very important? Spelling of medicine is very important. So with listening part A, spelling is important. There is some flexibility for words that are not commonly known to the lay and healthcare professionals, lay public and healthcare professionals. But if a word is commonly known, um, for example, diabetes, cholesterol, protein, all of these words are examples of words that are commonly known, and you are expected to spell them 100% correctly. With medicines, if you look at our sample tests on our website, so our official sample tests, you'll find that medicines don't really appear a lot in as answers. And if they do, they are medicines that are commonly known, that are commonly known to both healthcare professionals and the lay public. So that's how you need to think about medicines. Like I said, do go to our listening page on our website and have a look at the official tests there. Right, I might answer a related question here from Sharon. Sharon's asking, what type of words come as answers in part A? Are there any particular fixed words? So, Sharon, there aren't any particular fixed words. You're in part A, you are essentially completing a set of notes. Now, these notes are notes that the healthcare professional is making as they're speaking to their patient. So, think about the kinds of things that you would hear when a healthcare professional is speaking to a patient about a problem they have. You would hear symptoms, you would hear triggers, you would hear maybe yes, what elevates the symptoms, maybe some home remedies that they've taken. You would hear those kinds of things when you in a consultation. So those are the kinds of things that you would hear in part A. One really effective way to use your reading time in part A is to look at the notes, of course, the headings, look at the flow of the conversation, but also look at the words around the blank. You see that there are, untested notes. So there are complete notes, and then there's some notes around the blank. Those will help you understand what kind of word you're looking for there. So, for example, you would you'd be able to understand if maybe it's a symptom that's that the patient is going to talk about, that you need to note down. Maybe it's a duration of time that the patient has had that symptom. Maybe it's a part of the body that the patient is talking about at that point. So those are really the kinds of things that you would hear in part A, and that's what you should focus on using your background knowledge of consultations, reading the context sentence that you have at the beginning, activating your mind in the reading time that you have, and looking at those words and words around the blank. Okay. I've got a question here on reading part C paragraphs. So Sankar on YouTube's asking, please suggest some resources or sources for reading part C paragraphs. I'm going to post in our complete guide to reading part C. It's got some great um, suggestions for extra resources that you can access to improve this part, your skills in this part of the test. When you are looking at reading part C and preparing for reading part C, remember that this part of the test is a little bit different to the kind of that reading that you do every day at your workplace. So reading part A is all about reading that you do on the ward on a busy day. You're looking at dosage charts, treatment pathways, and you're trying to extract information really quickly. Reading part B again is workplace communication. So you're looking at memos, emails, and trying to get, maybe the main message of an email. So that's reading part A and part B, which you do every day, which you're probably really quite good at. Now, reading part C, the important thing to come to understand and to be aware of is that it's something that you might not do every day, because it's the kind of reading that healthcare professionals do when they want to continue their professional development. They want to improve their knowledge of their field and stay up to date with the latest developments in what's happening in the medical world or in their field. So that's that kind of reading for reading part C. So, having said that, once you're aware of this, you can actually pick up anything that is this kind of reading. For example, articles online that are of general medical interest. So there's a few websites that, as I'm going to share just shortly, a few websites that carry these sorts of articles. You could read, shorter articles, maybe longer articles as well, but all of those on any article on, developments in the medical field, and improvements in your field, is good to pick up and read. The kind of thing that you should focus on when you're reading Part C is to look at the different opinions of experts and understand what the different opinions expressed in that article are. Look at what the writer feels. Maybe there is something that the writer is hinting at when they're telling you or presenting those opinions. And these are the kinds of things that you need to focus on when you're reading these articles in real life. And definitely, these are that is the focus of Part C questions. So I'm going to put in the chat the complete guide to reading Part C, and you'll see at the end there a lot of helpful suggestions for exactly the kinds of articles that I have mentioned. All right, I've got a question here from Khalik on Facebook saying, can we get headphones for the listening sub-test in the UK centers? So Khalik, when you are booking your test on our Book a Test page, you'll be able to see which centers have headphones, and then you'll be able to select the center that offers headphones if that is your preference. So a lot of questions about listening and reading. I've got a question here about speaking from Chinu, again on Facebook. So Chinu is asking, in the speaking subtest, is it necessary to complete all the tasks? Does it affect the score if you don't? So Chinu, no, it's not necessary to complete all of the tasks. Remember that the roll card and the tasks on the roll card are designed actually to be completed in 5 minutes. So what I mean by that is there is enough for you to be able to carry out a conversation with the patient or the relative for 5 minutes. But the focus isn't completing all of the tasks. The focus is, communicating with your patient and displaying the clinical communication skills that the assessors are looking for that are there in the assessment criteria. So if you find that you weren't able to complete one task, don't panic. That is absolutely fine. As long as you weren't going completely off topic and off the roll card, that's not really going to have any effect on your score. And I'm going to put in to the chat a wonderful resource that is our speaking booster course. Now, this course is a short course that you can take um, on the go. What I mean is, you can log into this course. It's an online course, and you can log in from your phone or your laptop, wherever you are, and complete the short modules there. The modules give you a really good idea of exactly what I spoke about earlier, referred to. That is the clinical communication skills that the assessors are looking for. It has great examples, and you can sort of do a little bit of practice even to understand how you can display or demonstrate these clinical communication skills. So do check out the Speaking Booster course. Like I said, it's absolutely free. You just need to create your account on our website if you haven't done that already, and add it to your cart. When you add it to your cart, you'll see that it is free, and then just follow the instructions there and register for the course. Okay, I've got a question about writing from Fatime on YouTube, saying in the writing task, if the word count of the body of your letter exceeds 200, what happens? So with the word limit or the word guide, rather, it's 180 to 200 words. Like I said, it's a guide. Um, when the assessors are marking your letters, they're not counting words, they're counting information. They're looking to see what information you have included, and if the information you have included is is the information needed for the reader of your letter to continue caring for your patient. So, keeping that in mind, like I said, it is a guide, and that's what you should also keep in mind. Use that as a sort of a measuring stick of whether you have included too much information. So if you find yourself going above the word count, like a great deal above the word count, you might want to ask yourself if there are bits of irrelevant information in your letter. That could be one possibility. Or maybe you haven't summarized certain bits of your letter or certain pieces of information from the case notes effectively for your reader. So if you find yourself going above, ask yourself those questions, rather than worrying about the word count and then trying to mechanically bring down the word count. Similarly, if your letter is less than 180 words, you might have actually missed out some information, not included some irrelevant information that your reader needs, relevant information that your reader needs. So think about the word count that way, rather than worrying about exactly how many words it exceeds 200 by. So I'm going to put in the chat a very useful article, which also just talks about what I have just shared. And I'm going to put that in the chat for you to just read a little bit later if you'd like to. I'm just looking for some newer questions. All right, so I've got this question here from Romo on YouTube saying, when you do the writing sample practice for medicine, How do you do it? Does someone from OET mark your sample writing practice? So, Roma, I think you are referring to the computer-based sample test on our website. And when you do that, of course, you would write your answer. It's not marked by anyone. It's just a sample test, so it's not marked. What I would suggest is, taking a screenshot of it or taking copy pasting it once you have finished writing into another document um, to give to a teacher to assess. You could, have it assessed by any of the teachers that I have recommended, that we've recommended on our study with the teacher page, or you could, use a checklist to assess it yourself. I'm going to recommend a resource that has a checklist for you to use, but those essentially you would need to take it out from that computer-based format, that interface, and put it into a document or a screen, have a screenshot so you can have it assessed. Remember that, of course, the copy paste function is available only in the sample test environment on our website. It is not available in the live test. So copy paste is not something you can do in the live test. Now, about the resource I mentioned earlier, it is our Intro to OET course. And it has an excellent writing checklist and that you can access once you log in. And procedure is the same for the Speaking Booster course. Go to our shop, add it to your cart, and then follow the instructions. It is completely free of cost. I'm going to just post in the chat link to the intro course, and there is an intro course for medicine, one for nursing, and one for allied health. So I'm going to post in the chat the intro to OET for medicine. But yes, from the store there, if you are nurses or allied health professionals, in the chat you can find the other intro courses as well. I've got a question here from Noah on YouTube saying, can I underline keywords, write their synonyms beside them in reading part B and C for paper-based test? The paper-based test. Yes, you absolutely can. You can underline keywords in the texts. You can make notes if you'd like in the texts. And similarly with the answer options, you can do the same thing. Just to be mindful that if you're making notes around the answer options, you need to be careful to stay a little bit away from the circle, the shaded, the circle that you shade, the lozenge, just to make sure that there is nothing that's going to prevent the computer from reading your choice of answer accurately. Okay, I've got a question here from 7X on YouTube saying spelling mistakes are considered or not in listening, because I'm really confused about that. So, like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the session, spelling, there is some flexibility with listening. Now, with reading, we know that you have to spell your answer 100% correctly. There's no two ways about that. Your answer will be marked incorrect in reading if you spell it wrong. Now, in listening, there is a little bit more flexibility, but generally, our advice is that you should spell as accurately as possible, and you are expected to spell correctly, 100% correctly, words that are commonly known to both healthcare professionals and the lay public. So a few examples that I gave earlier were cholesterol, diabetes, protein, blood pressure. These are all words that are commonly known, and you would be expected to spell those correctly. If there's some words that are not so common, there is some flexibility with that. But again, I just want to emphasize that you need to aim to spell correctly in listening as well. Um, the Listening Week video playlist that I shared earlier has a really good session and section on spelling, and I would encourage you to watch that to get a better idea of some of the common mistakes that can happen with listening party spelling. Okay, I am just looking at some new questions. Question from Zara saying on YouTube saying, I'm getting 31 and 30 scores in reading and listening consistently. Should I book my exam? I'm not confident yet. So, Zara, with listening and reading, we do recommend that you do as a minimum score 30, 31, 32 in your practice tests to sort of be in that region of being confident that you'll get a B. I just want to say you have said consistently, which is great, but it's also important that you are getting these scores when you're practicing with official OET sample tests. So, not just any sample tests, they need to be official OET sample tests to be confident that you are sort of on that right track to getting a score. Now, I'm going to put in the chat the link to our OET store, which has more resources and more practice tests. The ones on our website are free, but there are additional practice tests that you can purchase on our store. So I just want to emphasize that a bit about the tests being official. They need to be official for you to be confident that you are on that right track. The other thing that I would say is 30, 31, 32 is the minimum. You should, maybe part of your lack of confidence is coming from just that sort of awareness that maybe that is the minimum. And we do sort of advise that candidates aim to aim to go above that minimum to be really, really confident. And so if there are some skills that you need to work on, so maybe it's a good point to introspect a little, do a little bit of self-reflection and ask yourself, why you're not feeling confident. What exactly, which part is it that's troubling you? Perhaps where are you getting where are you losing your marks? You're doing really well, getting 30, 31, 32, but what section, what part is creating a barrier there for you? So doing a little bit of reflection. I'm going to also just point you back to the Listening Week videos, and perhaps you've got that link already, but I'm just going to put it back into the chat. So just having a look at those videos, because that is going to also give you a good idea and help you understand really where your strengths are, but also where your weaknesses are and how you can improve. So once you've done that, once you've thought of all of those things and sort of reflected a little bit, you will be able to then make that choice and that decision about how confident you are. And then the third thing that I can recommend is, if you still do have a little bit of time and there's no immediate need for you to book your test, or you can of course work with one of the teachers that I've recommend it on our Study with the Teacher page, and they will also help you to understand how you can improve. Um, yes, so 30, 31, 32 is great, but that is the minimum. If you really want to be more confident, we would suggest aiming for a little bit higher. We have put in the listening week playlist. Yes, I have. Right. Um, Looking for some newer questions. This test again from Romo for computer medicine. Is it allowed to use a paper to write things out? For example, in the listening test on computer, can I write on paper while you listen? No, this is not an option in the computer-based test. There are, of course, other things that you can do to kind of make up for that. You can highlight words in the questions, for example. You can strike out answer options that you want to you're not considering. So those features are there. I would recommend taking a look at our tutorials on our website to have a look at the functionality, and best of all, taking a sample test to understand what you can and cannot do. Um, okay. I've got a question here from MZ on YouTube saying, I took OET twice, but I suppose the latest exams were difficult than the official sample test. Do you think OET is getting difficult? So this is something that candidates often ask. And a lot of times there are lot of rumors perhaps on social media speaking about, different experiences and how the test is getting difficult. But I just want to reassure you that the test is not getting more difficult. Remember that OET is a globally accepted test. It is a standardized test, and we have had to demonstrate to our regulators who accept our results that it is a standardized test, that any candidate taking the test on any day of the week, any time in the month, any administration has an equal chance of getting the scores that reflect their performance. We've had to demonstrate that to all our regulators. So it is absolutely not getting more difficult. What happens is sometimes when you're taking a sample test at home, often when you do it at home, you might not really stick to the test conditions and the the strict sort of atmosphere that's there in the in on test day, and that might also lead to some of that feeling of it not being, maybe it's more difficult because there is that added test day pressure. So I'd recommend, if you're taking a test at home as a mock test, then make sure that you as much as possible are doing it under test conditions. So for example, if you're going to be doing your test at a venue that doesn't have headphones, for example, then make sure that you don't use your own headphones while you're doing the test, while you're doing this mock test. So things like that, sticking to the reading time, and things like that, just help you create that atmosphere that will mimic as much as possible the test take conditions. So I hope that tip has helped, and also just reassured you that the test is not becoming difficult. I've got a question here from 7x again on YouTube saying, if I write extra words in listening or reading, then will marks be deducted? If you write, yes, absolutely. If you write extra words that are not required in the answer, then that answer would be considered incorrect. I've got a question here from Sahid. For a patient, if you're meeting them for the second time, you should start the role play by calling the patient or the interlocutor any name. Yes, absolutely. You can absolutely do that. Now, a good way to think about this is imagine in real life, if you're meeting a patient for a second time, you wouldn't introduce yourself or, ask them their name or check or confirm their name. You would know their name and you would start the role play, or you would start the interaction with their name. Um, and that's what you can do. The interlocutor will accept that and continue the role play. All of this is very clear in the background information, the information about whether you have, whether it's a patient that you have met before, or if you haven't met the patient before, or you have just finished examining the patient. I'm going to put in the chat um, another wonderful blog on how to start the role play, which will again explain this a bit further and give you some examples. I'm just looking for some um, newer questions. I've got a question here from Juliana. Um, if I want to change my exam date, how do I go about it? Yes, you can absolutely choose to defer your test. Um, and I'm going to put into the chat the team to contact, which is our wonderful customer service team. I'm going to put in the contact us page, but you can also contact them through our website. At the bottom right, there is a chat with an expert feature. So you can start a live chat with them and be able to speak to them with your request. Okay, just looking for some new questions. Got a question here again from Noah on YouTube saying, would you be provided with the writing materials as pen and pencils? Do you get to choose or you take them along with you? So yes, you can absolutely carry your own stationery to test day. And I'm going, so yes, if there's a pen or a pencil that you are very comfortable with, then yes, absolutely you can take that along as long as it meets the requirements. For example, with your pencil, it needs to be a non-mechanical pencil or a non-mechanical pen. So just making sure that you are following those, just keeping that in mind, um, is really important. What I'm going to do is just put in the chat our test day guide, which will tell you exactly what you can bring and what you cannot bring to test day. Okay. Just looking for any questions that I have missed. Got a question here from Rima that's just come in. If I book a computer-based test, can I use paper, scratch paper for writing? So Rima, no, this is not an option for the computer-based test. You can make notes in the answer box in your writing test, but make sure that you delete that before you submit your final answer. So you can do that, but scratch paper is not an option. Right. If I'm going to also just just talk a little bit while maybe some of you might want to throw in some last minute questions um, before the session ends today. I'm going to put in. I'm going to just talk a little bit about a resource that is an excellent preparation resource on our website, absolutely free again, which is our graded sample booklets. Maybe in the chat you could tell me if you have used our graded sample booklets. That would be great to hear. And if you haven't, then it's definitely a resource that will really help. It has, there are two sets of there are two booklets. One is speaking and the other is writing. You have 30 real samples, candidate samples, that have answered a sample test from our website, and have these samples have been graded by assessors. So you can see what grade they have received, and you can also see assessor comments about why they have received this grade. And it's really something that you can use in your own preparation to have a look at what things the assessors are praising in a sample, and what things that they say are lacking or need improvement in a sample. And these will really help you reflect on your own writing or your own speaking, to help you understand, where you can improve if you're looking at that one particular grade. So I would recommend checking those out. Let's put that in the chat now. Um, Graded sample booklets. And these are PDFs that you can download from uh, the website. There you go. That should have come through. So, like I said, that has come through in chat now. Like I said, those are really good resources that you can use as you prepare for your speaking and your writing. Right. Just a look to see if I have missed anything that I can answer. Um, no, I think I have probably covered all questions, which is lovely. Um, I'm just going to talk about our next live Q&A for a minute, and of course, our hour is still not up yet. There are a few couple of minutes left. So while I'm speaking about our next session, please, if you have any questions, please feel free. I can come back to them. But our next live Q&A is Wednesday, 2nd July, the same time, the same place at all of those times that you will see on the screen there. If you have a burning question before that that you would like answered, please do contact us on our Facebook Messenger, and we will get back to you with that reply. If not, or if you've got that answer and you have some more questions, then feel free to join us on Wednesday, the 2nd of July. All right, Maria saying she has an earlier question. All right, yeah, Maria, question on reading A, B, and C. So Maria, I'm going to put in chat reading our reading week playlist, which is an excellent resource that will help you uh, understand more about each part of the test. So I'm just going to put that in the chat. Now, how the reading week is, just give me a second. Yeah. So how it is that you have 5 videos, each of one each dedicated on each part of the test, A, B, and C. And then the first video talks more generally about the skills, and the last video talking about how you can improve and more ways to practice reading. So please do check out that resource. It's an excellent resource that can go into that goes into details with each part of the test. All right, so I will end it there. Thank you all for joining me today. And like I said, please feel free to keep sending us your questions on Facebook or to join me again on the 2nd of July. Bye for now.